very much
for
coming on the programme there and outlining some of those trickier situations. That's Rabia Nazimi there, giving some insight and some stories behind how people are trying to tackle those issues that people face in ethnic minority groups. Now, a ban on protesters outside abortion clinics could be introduced in a London borough after councillors in Ealing overwhelmingly backed a proposal to stop anti-abortion groups from approaching women as they enter a Mary Stopes clinic. Over 3,000 people signed a petition which was brought to the council by a group called Sister Supporter, who are campaigning for the clinic to be free from the intimidation and harassment of protesters. The Good Counsel Network, who are one of the anti-abortion groups who campaign outside the clinic, say that they don't harass women. Well, in a moment, I will speak to a spokesperson from that group, but first I'm joined by John Hanson-Brevity from the Mary Stopes Clinic in Ealing. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Emma. Thanks for having me.
For people who aren't aware of these protests that happen outside the clinic, what's happening? Are these protesters going up to women?
Absolutely, and it's more a case of women having to go up to the protesters themselves, if that's what we want to call it, because they are standing directly at our gate, in our gate, physically blocking people's paths.
And what are they saying or doing when they block their paths?
It can only be characterized as cruelty. They're calling women mum, murderers. They're saying that they'll be haunted by the ghost of their fetus. They're handing them leaflets with gross medical misinformation, and doing everything they can to both physically and emotionally block people from accessing healthcare that they need and that they have a legal right to.
But what about, we really value in this country the freedom of speech, and we value people's right to protest. What about, we will hear from one of those protesters in just a moment, or a spokesperson for that group. What about their rights to do that?
Absolutely, and we support that as well. They're quite free to express themselves down the road, or even more appropriately on Whitehall, if they're looking for policy change or things of that nature. But I think their behavior shows that this isn't about protest for them. This is about harassing and punishing women for a choice that they've made, and there's nothing free about subjecting people to abuse like that.
Have you seen women who are coming in for abortions be distressed after having contact?
Every day. It's nearly every client who comes in who mentions that they're upset, that they're angry. They're often in tears. This is not something that they want to encounter. It's not something that helps them.
And how many people are outside your clinic, would you say?
It varies day to day. At a minimum, there's 3. But more and more we're seeing larger, what they call vigils, of 20 or so, creating quite a spectacle and a very intimidating picture for someone who's approaching a clinic that they had hoped to access rather confidentially.
If this ban is passed at the clinic in West London, do you hope protesters will then be banned at all abortion clinics across the UK?
It could have that implication, and it's something that's encouraging us that this is a very landmark decision, and if it's carried through and supported as strongly in other boroughs as it was in Ealing last night, it could really enable women across the UK to access healthcare without harassment.
Let me bring in then Clare McCullough, who is from the group Good Counsel Network, who hold vigils outside the Mary Stopes Clinic, as you've just been hearing about in Ealing. We've just heard there that women who are going in for a medical procedure which is legal in this country are distressed, having been in contact with members of your group.
I think it's very clear that women entering abortion centres are distressed, full stop.
So why do you add to their distress?
We're not there to add to their distress.
But that's the net result.
The leaflet that we give women lists the help and support that's available to them: babysitting, financial help, housing. We are seeing women who are victims of domestic violence, illegal immigrants, and everything else.
How do you know anything about them?
Because they come out and speak to us, and many of them accept our help. We have hundreds of these women. We'd be glad to bring any of them in to be interviewed if you'd like to speak to them. Most media outlets have refused.
You don't accept that you add to their distress. How can you say for sure that if I was walking to an abortion clinic this morning and I met one of your protesters and they gave me a leaflet I didn't really want, I chuck it on the floor, that you haven't mentally added to my distress that morning?
Abortion is distressing. A woman is having her child's life ended. It's distressing. There's nothing that can happen to her that day that isn't going to be distressing. We're there to offer her alternatives. We offer a leaflet and then we back off.
Do you have the distressing images in that leaflet of developing babies?
We have images of babies at different stages of gestation. There's 3 line drawings. I believe that the clinic is supposed to be informing these women of that information. So if that information has been given to women anyway, I'm not sure how us presenting a line drawing of it, it's not a photograph even that they're receiving.
But you can't say for sure, if it's me walking into that clinic this morning, that I wouldn't be extra distressed by one of your protesters. You just can't say that because you don't know what's going on in my mind.
I can say for certain that the women, hundreds of them who've accepted our help outside the clinic, would have been distressed if they'd had to have an abortion because they had nowhere to live, no money, no support.
I've got somewhere to live and I would happily have an abortion.
I still need to be there for the woman who hasn't got those options.
So that's the women that you're there for. But what about the women who walk in there, are distressed because they're in a situation they don't wish to be, and they are fulfilling what is their legal duty to go and have a procedure that's okay in this country?
We're offering them a leaflet and we're backing off. That's the least offensive we can be. If we were physically blocking their entrance, John's clinic has got 2 cameras trained on us every day of the week, every day of the year.
What cameras have
Where
you got?
is the evidence? We've got no cameras. We do not film outside the clinic, and there is no evidence of us filming outside the clinic because we've never done this.
Nobody from your network's ever filmed. You can say that.
I can say categorically that nobody films the clinic entrance. We have filmed people committing offences against us outside the clinic, but not women entering the clinic.
Has anybody
But
from
we
your
do not film until somebody starts to, assault us or steal our property, or, as Sister Supporter often have done, start to film our own staff.
Sounds quite
at the
dramatic
vigil entrance.
outside a
It
medical
is
facility.
now. It is. I believe that Sister Support have done their very best to foment an incident. From having 2 people outside the clinic, we now often have 10, 20, 30. I've seen 40 members of Sister Supporter there on a Saturday morning. Does that make women feel better?
Well, they could feel more protected.
Women going in don't often know who's who. They just see a bunch of people outside a clinic. Is it better to see 1 or is it better to see 41?
But I'm trying to understand, OK, you've not filmed anyone, you say. That might come to light in a different way. We'll have to see.
Well, could we have some evidence?
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see some evidence.
Me too.
It'd be interesting. Do you ever call anyone murderers?
Nobody in my organisation has ever called anyone a murderer.
You can say that categorically.
I can say it categorically. If any of our staff witnessed that, they would be phoning the police themselves. We have hundreds of women who choose life for their babies. Why would we try and stand in the street calling them murderers? It doesn't really facilitate people coming to us to ask for help.
Why do you bother?
Because hundreds of women don't have an alternative. That's one reason. We don't agree with abortion in any circumstances, but we're not standing blocking the gate trying to force people not to go in, or we'd be arrested. We've been there.
You do this for
23 years.
Is religion motivating you?
I have religious beliefs, but if tomorrow I lost my faith, I would still know that a life is being taken. That's a scientific fact.
Is it a Christian group?
Most of the people in that group are Christian, and a lot of us are Catholics.
Could I ask you a question that adding distress to somebody, regardless of faith background, but it's important to understand where people are coming from when they protest. People of faith are there to make life easier, to make it kinder, to make it nicer. If you add to somebody's distress, it's hardly what anybody who follows a religion would want to do, is it?
I don't think I take that definition of religion at all. I mean, religion often does make our life harder. But anyway, we're not there to indoctrinate people with our religious belief. We're witnessing to the fact that many women have no alternatives, and we'll keep witnessing. Would you like to interview some of these women?
I would.
Great. When can we set that up?
I'd also like to interview some of the women who you've distressed.
That's fine. That seems fair.
But presumably you can find some of them, even if you don't accept you've distressed them.
Well, I mean, Mary Stopes and Sister Supporter are saying that they can find these women, so they bring them forward, and we can bring forward the women who are actively thankful that we were there and have accepted our help.
Well, let's convene that.
Great.
Thank you very much. Clare McCullough, who's from the group, the Good Counsel Network, who hold vigils outside the Mary Stopes Clinic in Ealing, which we're discussing with regards to a potential ban there. Thank you for coming on the programme. Now, one of the things